Good afternoon, everyone. Well, it's good afternoon here. This is the first battle report of An Adventure Awakens. There are some written battle reports on the Ninth Age forum, and this will be a repeat of the first one, but in video format. Again, so the reason for An Adventure Awakens is I don't know, it's an adventure, something is awakening, but more importantly, my wife is German, and the AAA is sort of their recovery service, and it's alliteration, whatever. But this is battle report number 1. It's friendly. It's against Tommy Tucker, and those who haven't played him before, you're in for a treat when you do. He's a lovely player and always offers advice, and is very sporting. He was taking his Saurian Ancients here. I'm a classic Sylvan player. I've never really played anything else, so I will stick with that, even when I went back to 8th edition. So I'm a creature of habit, if nothing else. We rolled for map Alpha 3, and there's a big red cross on the hill, as we forgot about it when we actually set a deployment. I mean, we both even talked about it, how useful it would be, but neither of us ended up taking it. The deployment was marching columns, so that one where you deploy 3 from one side, and then you can either continue alternating drops or just drop completely. And the second objective was spoils of war. So that's 3 pennies in the center. In terms of army lists, my army list, I generally pick this because at the time of Frome in July, and I haven't changed the list since then, these were the models I'd repainted and I was pretty happy with, actually. So I've got the Forest Prince on a Dragon with Titanic Mind for that strength 7 goodness. My general is Treefather Ancient. That's partly because he's leadership 9, big 18-inch bubble, and he's tough as hell. With Druidism, there's fairly little you can do with him, and it's one of the reasons I took risks with Obsidian Rock on the Dragon, because I feel I can. The next part, I've got the classic BSB Blade Dancer build with the Hunters on Spear and 2 Aether Icons. This can go in the Blade Dancers, gives them Swift Stride and MR4, and if he causes a wound, it's -1 to hit with Distracting, so it's a pretty neat option. This is a very classic core for Sylvan Elves. I've got big unit Dryads followed by 2 scoring darts that all can get chaff when required. 2 units of Heath Hunters for chaff/shooting. I think the key with them is trying to hold on to them as long in the game as possible, just so that you can use them in critical moments. Also, utilize those bows as much as possible. 13 Blade Dancers, as we talked about, and 7 Wild Huntsmen with Shield, Lance, Sylvan Lance, and Flaming Standard. Now, Flaming Standard I never really leave home without, and that's just because there will be that time when you hit that 40 special tournaments and you just cannot touch the damn unit, and it's quite annoying. Pathfinders, I love a bit of scouting. I don't usually use it, but I found it really quite good. Not so much the +2 AP with the Pathfinders, but that +2 to hit just means they can outshoot most other scoring or similar units. They can just sit back about 30-inch range in a bit of wood, and they will outlast them even with less armor, I think. And then the 5 Briar Maidens, champion, bit extra magic. It's not so much for poisoning. They are the cheerleading section because they are probably my best painted unit at the time, and therefore that's why they're in the list. In terms of Tommy's Saurian Ancients, he's gone with the Quaterlord with Pyromancy. It's his BSB in general, and he's got the J-Star, so it's got the Healing Waters for a 5+40 as a bound spell, and Grasp of the Immortals give him an extra channel, so he's channeling 2 there. I wasn't so scared of this, actually. As a Pyromancy master, as long as I put my monsters straight at it, I can keep them out of range and just push them as far back as possible and protect the rest of my army. The next 2 items I have no idea about. 2 Saurian Warlords, 5 Strength 7 attacks, not including the Raptor, but both have a 1-up save at Resilience 5. One of them's got 4 hit points and a 5+ Aegis. One of them's got, admittedly, only 3 hit points, but a 4+ Fortitude. No idea about that. My plan may be I can use my Treefather Agent's Crush attack. I don't want to put my Dragon in. Wild Huntsman could do it, and maybe my Pathfinders. I eventually go with sort of more Pathfinder shooting, and it doesn't work. Otherwise, he's got 4 scoring units, 2 Saurians, and 2 Skinks, just to provide that. Small units with sort of a bit of MMU. And then 2 units of 3 pterodons, quite useful. Just got to avoid the dropping rocks. If I get in those D3 hits per unit, I just need to stay that 18 inches back to limit that. And then 3 Taurosaurs for Grey Bow. I was mostly worried about the impact hits with these, as I think I can take them with quite a few of my units. And the Great Bow, as long as I can get Forest Embrace up, it hits me on 5s, and it definitely wounds me on 5. So I wasn't as worried about that. The impact hits were the big thing. I think I have an advantage in this army list, apart from the Warlords. I don't know how to take them, but I think I can push him back and take on the rest of his army. In terms of magic, Sylvan Elf spell selection, I just went for Oaken Throne. Healing Waters, even though he has Pyromancy, it can't be for everything, and I've just then got to stop a Sword of Flaming Swords if he takes it. And then I've got Entwining Roots because along with Forest Embrace on the Briarmaidens, it pairs very nicely with the Blade Dancers. Think about it. If they're offensive 4, get down to offensive 2. Hunter's on a wound, so automatically hitting on 6s. And then if you Forest Embrace large one, you can re-roll those 6s. So effectively, it gives me 2 turns of very aggressive dances from the War Dancers without having to worry about taking wounds in return. Then Stone Skin and Summer Growth, because I think that's going to be quite useful in mitigating the Pyromancy. Briarmaidens, I've also taken Master of Earth, and this is just so I can even necessarily use a dragon on the flank and still heal it. Tommy on his Quattle, he didn't take Scorching Salvo because he knew I was going to potentially use my Blade Dancer within my 4 and just sit in the centre. So he took Sparkle Creation for that dragon, Fireball just for a bit of range, and then Cascading Fire for combat, and Pyroclastic Flow when I got in close. So, deployment. Now, Tommy rolled off the sides and chose the top, and this probably because of the Healing Waters, and just to stay away from the woods as far as possible because of my DT1s on him, and also just so I don't have something to advance into. I then elected to drop my units first. I felt with Pyro, I'm going to have to go for it and just try and get us across the board as quickly as possible and push him back into that corner with the 3 pennies. I wanted to contest for 1 and then just try and push him. I thought he was going to adopt to the left of that building and just push him back into that top left corner for the objective. So I put my Heath Hunters, as you can see on the right hand picture on the right there, and then he dropped the Skinks. I dropped the Briarmaidens because I thought if this is where my dragon is going to be with the house, I'm a lot more manoeuvrable and just have that healing supporting on this side. He put the Pterodons, and then I put my first Dryad Dart there to the left of the Briars. He put his final Skinks. I thought that's the gap where he's going to put all his big monsters and stuff, so I dropped thereon using the dragon where I thought so, with the Wild Huntsman next to him just to dominate that centre, so I can push them back there. And then the Blade Dancers in the forest, Tree Father Ancient just to give his big bubble over to the left, and then the Dryads behind the wall, the Heath Hunters and the other small Dryads. I didn't place the Pathfinders who were scouting yet, but I did imagine if he left a gap, they were either going to go in that top right-hand corner there. Big problem here with the Dryads. I did not put them in quite a blocky formation. I still had them in line. I do rectify that, but that is a mistake I also repeated in the next game. Well done, James. And then here you can look at, this is Tommy's list. This is after Vanguards and Scouts, but originally he had the Pterodons on the right behind the house, and then set up. He's got a very strong centre with monsters and warlords, and then the Quaffle in the second Saurian unit behind. And I do place my Pathfinders on the right there, and that's purely to go after those Pterodons with that +2. So my first turn, I move everything up just to make sure that I can kill off those Pterodons. I mean, if you can't do it in one go, you might just absolutely reinforce it with everything. Don't try and spread your shooting around. I think that's a better policy with this, and hopefully I can kill them off before they come back to haunt me in later turns. In the centre, I move my Blade Dancers back out of the wood, and then on the Tree Father moved behind. The Wild Huntsman shuffled a bit, but nothing really. And then I left the Dryads behind that wall because I thought if I move forward, then I'm just tempting a charge, and actually by staying back, I'm still close to the objective to threaten it whilst protecting myself behind the wall. And then the Dryads and the Heath Hunters just stay out of range, making sure I can shoot at the Pterodons. In Magic, I drew the number 5 card, so it's quite high early. I didn't really want that and have an 8/5 phase. My key part here was protecting the dragon at this stage, so I cast Oaken Throne with 1 dice, and then I cast Forest Embrace on the dragon, and he lets that through. I fail Master of Earth to try and blink some wounds off the Pterodons. I then fail Stone Skin, and then I cast Healing Waters on the Wild Huntsman, but he stops that. But then, last but not least, no more Pterodons. The shooting just completely overwhelmed them. I think it was between the Heath Hunt, I don't even think I needed the Heath Hunters to take off that final wound, which is a bit of a waste, but effectively they're dead. So I think that's a good start for the Sylvan. So here we have Saurian Ancients turn 1. Unfortunately, I didn't get a lot of pictures on this one, but I'll be able to show you in the next couple of turns. The big thing for this is he's moved his battle line back, which is kind of beneficial to me. So he's moving away from the center spoil. The only big thing is I'll be able to show you how he's moved his Warlord up to zone on the left, but on the right here, he's pretty much just backed off, which is helpful for me. Fortunately, he's kept his magic in range, and he drew the number 4 card for an 8/6 phase. Correction, he's drawing number 6 card for an 8/6 phase. He gets Pyro and Cascading Fire off, and I managed to stop them, but he then gets Fireball and Spark through. It's just that +2 to cast. He dies. He can get 4 spells off turn. He doesn't aim at the Pathfinders, which is my big worry, but he does manage to take off the Heath Hunters. I was hoping to use those chaff, at least one of them, for next turn to really push, and so maybe I should have put the Briar Maidens the other way around. But in this case, that's how it goes. But otherwise, not too bad a turn. 20 leaves 5 Heath Hunters to Pyro. So in Sylvan Elves turn 2, this is a better description to see how the movement has come round. Well, what I do there is firstly, no charges. I don't need to at this stage, but I do, if you look at top right, move my Briar Maidens in, and there's very much in this sort of position that Heath Hunters would have been. I'm using them to bait them, whilst trying to move my Blade Dancers, and I've moved my Dragon around just to cover it. In here, you can see finally I've moved my Dryads into a better formation, and otherwise I'm just keeping my Heath Hunters in range while slowly encroaching my left-hand Dryads in case I need them. Treefather Ancient is pointing to the left just in case that Warlord wants to go in to the Dryads. They'll hold, and then I can countercharge with the Treefather and maybe break him through combat res, or at least have a go with a crush attack. In Magic, I get number 3 spell. I get 7/5. Number 3 card. I get 7/5. I'm not really bothered by this point. I just need to make sure my Blade Dancers and Wild Huntsman are buffed. So I cast Healing Waters. I've still got Oaken Throne up. I fail Stone Skin. I wanted this to go up on the dragon, just protect him from Spark of Creation and other stuff, but completely whiff and get 3 of my 4 dice back. I then cast Healing Waters, and he lets that through because it's a 4+ on the Wild Huntsman. And then I cast Forest Embrace on the Dragon, but he, after last turn, has only been able to hit on 5s, so now moving close, that's the one he's waiting for, and he stops it. In shooting, I take a wound off the Pterodons on the left with the Heath Hunters, and the Pathfinders take a wound on the right-hand Taurosaur. This is something I probably should have continued doing, but didn't. I got sidetracked by the other character, and when chasing after that, and it was just such a bad idea. Res 5, 1 up, 4 up. I'm not getting through that no matter what. So, Saurian Ancients turn 2. This is where he's firstly, he's charged the Saurians into the Briar Maidens in the flank. I was kind of hoping to draw out his central monsters a bit more, but he wasn't falling for that. And this was such an easy one. I fled it as per the plan. I did think about holding it and then being able to countercharge, but all that would happen there is then he would be able to countercharge my countercharge with all his big grizzly stuff. It doesn't help me. So and I haven't got any extra chaff just to stop that at the moment. So I fled with the Briar Maidens. It keeps my magic available. The only thing now you can see is here are the Wild Huntsmen, and they are being blocked. Instead of actually stopping him moving forward, I've created this space there, and you can see his Warlord has moved around to this spot here. If I kept the Wild Huntsman more in this area here, I probably could have blocked that, and it would have stopped that. Otherwise, his creatures are shuffled around just to make sure they can shoot the dragon, and that's that. They're not really bothered by the Blade Dancers yet. They're not in range, and it's just keeping the dragon at bay from getting in. On the left-hand side, you can see the big changes is his Warlord has moved up to really start threatening my Heath Hunters and small Dryads. His Skinks are starting to move up, but equally critically his Pterodons. They are absolutely offering a flank along here, and I didn't notice this at this stage, which is probably unfriendly why I didn't tell Tommy. I didn't realise, and it was only when I was trying to work out what I was going to do my turn 3 that I saw this as a flank, and it actually wasn't that far away. But otherwise it's pretty stable on the left. The other part is also his middle Taurosaur here has sort of turned. Now that's to get a shot away at the dragon, but it's also left me this gap in the center here for my Dryads to start moving through. So that I've definitely seen. I'm going to try. I was planning to capitalize on that next turn. In shooting and magic, so he gets the number 2 card off. Number 2 card, and we have a 6/5 phase. I stopped pretty much all his spells. He has such a really bad magic phase. We didn't see any of this, but the wound is there from shooting from one of the great bows that managed to put it, but it only managed to roll a 1 on the D3 for wounds, which is really good. Dragon is really quite lucky. So another successful phase at mitigating pyro against the central units and only taking a small amount of casualties. So Sylvan's turn 3. I can now see this, and I take the charge. So the Heath Hunters first charged the Terragons, and he decided to elect to flee. Now this is really good. So they're now outside the BSB / General's leadership. So I'm hoping they just run off the board. I then pass my redirect and go into the Skinks. Commonly elected to flee on this because actually, if I get in, which was very doable, it was only like a 16, 17. It really wasn't fast. So not only do I have a stand and shoot, but he's going to be hitting on very low amounts. But he was mostly in the water, which means he's not steadfast. I'm going to cause more wounds. And even if he does stick, there is no countercharge there available to him. So he fled that as well. I think that was a good move because they're still inside the Generals and BSB. It saves a unit, and it just means my Heath Hunters stumble forward, and that's them left there. Otherwise, on this side, I'll move the Dryads up to chaff his Warlord, and as stated before, punch the Dryads up into the centre. And this is to look at either going into the flank of his battle line there, or take the objective itself. Because with 3 turns left, even with all of that going in, I still think the Dryads can hold with a bit of magic support. In the centre here, you can see the Blade Dancers haven't really moved. I've now moved the Wild Huntsman back across, and although it doesn't look like it, there is a gap to charge through. I've made sure the arc on this time between the Tree Father and the Blade Dancers. The Tree Father's looking at the Warlord, and that's just to get a shooting attack away, but also move forward so he can cast Summer's Growth on the Dragon, which is now the other side of the building and out of arc, and that's just getting back up to 6 wounds before the eventual shooting and magic phase. 5 Briar Maidens, importantly rallied, and now just turned to pivot. I fully expected them to go in, so I think maybe I could challenge and hold. It's unlikely, but with the BSB within 12 and the Generals there unleash at 9, yeah, definitely possible in them for the countercharge. And the Pathfinders, I moved them back across. I saw his Lord. I thought maybe I could have a go at him with all the shooting, but that was a big mistake. In Magic, I get a number 1, and effectively nothing goes off. It's a real fluff of a phase, and yeah, just nothing really happens. It is quite disappointing. In his phase, this is quite annoying. not only did he pass with the skinks that was expected, but he's passed with the pterodons. This was like a leadership 5 or 6. Yes, cold-blooded, but no reroll. It's low. Shouldn't have. I wasn't expecting this, or I was hoping not. But actually, I should have been. And because they're faint flight, they're just straight back in doing what Tommy really wanted them to do. So no real loss there. And I'm going to have to charge them now. The Warlord's gone in on the left to Dryads to wipe them out. And the Briar Maidens, the Skinks, have moved up to shoot the Heath Hunters in order to take them off. The Taurosaur is now free to move back over and will charge my Dryads in the next turn. And the Skinks are ready to take the objective once my Dryads are in combat. Here's the other part of Saurian's turn 3. So start top right, you can see his all his line has moved around again. He's pivoted his Saurians to move back, middle Saurian warrior units to move back towards the dragon. And that's just to keep in a bit of threat. One thing I didn't think he saw here was that I just would pop back over the other side of the building. I think he thought I'd push now and go in, but those Saurians have a champion. I'm not going into there, not at the moment, not without some support where I can destroy the unit and break their steadfast, because two impact hits, which then the reroll impact hits Taurosaurs in the flank is not exactly ideal. Bottom right, this Warlord, I did nothing to it last turn, is still muddying around my lines. I feel like King Henry with Thomas Becket here. Will no one rid me of this meddlesome Warlord? Because shooting is not working. And I should have realised at this point it wasn't going to work. But it's now threatening not just my Huntsmen, but also my Blade Dancers, and I want to sort of make them dominate the centre. But on some good side on the left, my Heath Hunter survived, and they didn't fail their panic checks, so they're still in the fight. But more importantly, the Dryads hit first and caused the wound on the Warlord. That meant when the Warlord only did 1 wound back, not only my steadfast, but with the charge, he's only up by 1. And they pass their leadership 7, so that means they're in the fight. I was happy at the time, but then I realised that he was going to break combat probably on my turn. Great. So that's a problem for me that I need to think about. But I do have the Heath Hunters there to support. So this is what happens. My Dryads charge the Pterodons. This is just to get them out of the way. Otherwise, they're going to be left there for ages. I know I'm going to get countercharged by the Taurosaur, but now it's just about mitigating and making sure that Warlord can't come in as well. Though I don't think it's a major problem. I moved the Heath Hunters up there to block it as they weren't shot off last turn. And I moved the Blade Dancers up, ensuring the BSBs on the other side is also within 12 inches of the front of the Dryads. So when they reform, there is going to be there's no issue. The other thing I did was move the Wild Huntsman over to the bottom. It's just about where the wall is down here. They're just off screen there. And I sort of worked it out. That's just so that if the Dryads reform, that when the Taurosaur goes in, the Wild Huntsmen have a relatively easy charge into the flank, whilst also not being in range of that right-hand Warlord. As you can see, I've really started to push on this side. So the Pathfinders, firstly, I'm staying behind the building. I do not want to get a load of pyro to the flank and just see them wiped off. Makes it harder to shoot the Warlord, but I think this is a lost cause anyway. The Dragon has moved back over the other side, and that's just to pair up with the Tree Father and keep out of range. And they're going into the centre there. And the Briar Maidens are just behind there to try and keep out of cover, but I don't think I'll be able to manage it with his movement. In terms of magic, nothing really happens again, apart from I managed to get the wounds back up on the dragon critically, and this is probably the biggest thing. I do not get Forest Embrace up on the Blade Dancers. I was quite worried about this and why I normally take 2 tree spells. It gets even worse because I hadn't seen a charge on them, on the Blade Dancers, which would be obvious next turn. In combat here, I wipe out the Pterodons and turn to face the Taurosaur, but the Warlord does cause enough wounds on the Dryads. He did actually kill one. There isn't some there. We put that back in later just for the photo. But they failed their check. They were off the board. and he turns to pivot. So it's quite good those Heath Hunters are there now, just blocking his charge, but that does mean I'm losing them in his next turn as well. Right, so expected charges were the Saurian Warlord here going into the Heath Hunters, and the Taurosaur going into the Droids. Nothing wrong with that, fully planned for. What I hadn't seen was this bad boy coming in here. This is bad. I haven't got a wood up around them, so they're not going to be stubborn. And yes, they've got a BSB and the generals there, so I'm starting leadership 9. But I'm strength 4 at best, and he's res 6. With impact hits, he can reroll and thunderstomps. Even on a 3+ Aegis, I think I'm losing models. I haven't got a rank. I'm at best going to have maybe a wound with 3+ Aegis, maybe a wound through, and BSB and banner. So I'm going to have 3, but he's definitely going to kill more than that. So I had to hold on this, but he fails the charge, which is very lucky for me. So here on this side, you can see that he's moved his Saurian warriors around, and that's just to block my True Father from pushing forward as far as possible, whilst bringing his Warlord in. He's not scared of my Pathfinders or Briarmanes or anyone else shooting at him, for that matter of fact. But he's just trying to give himself as much gap between him and Quattle's as possible by moving him to the Skinks while threatening me. Effectively, if I don't break through these Saurian Warlords, warriors, I'm getting a Warlord to the bum, which is not going to be good. So Sylvan Elves turn 5. This is probably a good photo. I haven't got a great one, but clearly you see the Blade Dancers go in on the left. That was in the auto charge. Tree Father Ancient has gone in to the centre of Warriors. He's going to get challenged out and get stuck there. But the Dragon made it into one of the unwounded Taurosaur at the back there. He's got 6 wounds to go through, but he's got 7 attacks, 5 attacks from the Dragon, and I'm probably going to have to pop the breath weapon, but he's going to smash them. I need to kill him, otherwise this ain't going to work. Otherwise, I use my Briarmanes to block his Warlord in case my Blade Dancers don't break the Saurian Warriors. They are in range of the BSB in general, so if I don't kill more than 10, they're staying. And I think a Warlord going into the back of them actually at the time grinds them out. They just don't have a high enough strength attack and AP to go through that 4 up. And then the Pathfinders now move into possession. His Quattle can't move up as much, so they're not under threat anymore, but they're still got to kick them out. In my turn 5, there was one charge that made, but it failed, and this was the Wild Huntsman going forward into the flank of the Taurosaur. It needed an 8. It didn't make it. Not the end of the world, because I think they're going to plan, but it does make it quite tricky next turn, because there's going to be minimum 2 thunderstorms, so I think the large Dryads are going to be dead by the end of it. In Magic, I've got the number 8, I get the number 5 card, and I'm going for an 8/5 at phase at this point. I get the Oaken Throne up. I cast the Oaken Throne, but Tommy stops it, and I think that's quite clever. And so it really limits my other magic throughout the rest of the phase. The only thing I really get up is 5+ Fortitude on the Blade Dancers, but critically I don't get anything off on the I get Forest Embrace off on the Blade Dancers, but I don't get anything off on the Dryads. I'm not in range, and that's going to leave them on their own. In shooting, does nothing. Still, so I still can't do anything to that damned Lord, but in combat it goes really quite well. Not necessarily for the Dryads, but they do stick because they're in range of the BSB. They've only caused 1 wound to the Taurosaur, and they're starting to reduce, so getting a Lord and the skink, well, even just the Skinks in the flank is probably going to break them completely in the Saurian Ancients next turn. But in the center, the Dragon does very well. Puts 3 wounds on, and I'm thinking, yeah, that's a good start. He then the dragon puts another 2, but it's not quite as good as I was hoping for. I was hoping it was before, so I popped the breath weapon, and the dragon caused 1 wound, and the breath weapon, the dragon caused 2 wounds, and the breath weapon caused that final wound. So, and then I turn into the center. This is because I was hoping that the Dryads might stick, but this was such a silly thing to do. I should have turned to face more towards the Quattle and just force him back into that corner or as far away as possible. What I did was left a gap where where he could sit with the Taurosaur for that final turn, and you can see that here. Right, what we've got here is a picture of his turn of 5. This Warlord is a bit of a cut through here, a bit of a fluff from both leads. The Saurian Warlord does not make it into the Wild Huntsman. Hooray! So also it means he didn't go into the Dryads, but the Skinks have gone into Dryads, as you can see here, and I think that's going to be curtains for them. Importantly, I'd like you to note, at the moment, there are currently pretty much a full unit of Blade Dancers there after massacring the Saurians and making them run away. Also, which didn't come up last turn, is the Tree Father. Tommy was quite unlucky here, so he challenged out the Tree Father as champion, got smushed, lost combat. He then failed the cold-blooded check outside of BSB, so there was no reroll, and they ran and the Tree Father caught them. So that's pretty much 1 Saurian unit left on 4. They rally this turn just because they're inside the BSB's leadership, not on 25% models, but it does mean he's in a bit of a fix there over scoring. And I've got my Dryad units that ran into the corner, and his Warlord has not gone after them. So here, this pretty much secures the objective for me. His Warlord's gone into Barbarian Megans. I'm going to lose channel. They're going to die, but he's not chasing after the Dryads. They've ran into the corner. He can't make it into them now. And even if he does kill them on this turn, that's it. They're gone. Again, Pathfinder's just zoning. The other picture here is these 5 dice. This was my dispel attempt on something. It's the most successful dice roll we have done this game. It really was a fluff match at times. It's amazing we killed anything. So I think this roll used up all our high dice roll. Overall, I think it's played out better for myself. I don't have a very damage-orientated magic phase, and not having to heal stuff is not really required if no one's killing anything. On this phase, he managed to get a 5-ig as well. He got an 8-5 phase. I stopped Spark on my Dragon, but Pyroclastic Flow, I'll go on to the next one here. If you look, and this is after combat, but if you look here, there are no more Blade Dancers. So I stopped Spark, and my logic here was I thought, Dragon's my key, I really need to save that. Blade Dancer got MR4, he's not going to get enough spells to kill him. He gets Pyroclastic Flow off. 2d6 rolls an 11. Kills the remaining 9 Blade Dancers in that go. And that's along with the attributes. So he's killed 9 of them. I think I saved 1 on the Aegis, 6 up. But either way. He then casts Fireball on my BSB at the end and does the final wounds to it with the attribute. So that is the whole unit. I tallied up the points at the end. The Dragon's worth 730. With the Blade Dancers, the BSB, and the 200 points for the BSB, it's actually worth more than the Dragon. And as it's not my general, I should have just relied on that 4+ on that 4+ to wound to keep me in the fight. He's great, bro, needing 5s, and protected the Blade Dancers. Not a mistake I'm going to make again. Other than that, is Saurian. You can see his Saurians have rallied in the centre here, and his Skinks have moved up, basically to try and block me going into this unit here, because his Skinks are going to probably pick up the objective. After killing the Dryads who've got it, and he's moved his Quattle back here just to keep him out of arc with the Dragon. So firstly, I charged the Dragon into the Skinks that were here. So the Dryad unit previous turn run from the Taurosaur and got killed, ran down. The Skinks had stayed on the objective around here, and this was so they could pick it up on their turn 6 and draw the objective. I charged in. I didn't have to take it. It passively terror checked, but he elected to flee, and he thought it's such an easy charge range, so they left, dropping the objective. So I've won objective so far. He can't pick it up. I then chose to redirect into the skinks in front of me just because it was a much shorter charge, and that's the way it goes. I knew I was going to get challenged out, but that's the way it goes. I haven't got a breath weapon anymore. There's nothing more I can do. It also, if I'm in combat, there's only one spell he can throw at it, and he can't shoot me with a great bow. My Wild Huntsman over here charged into initially his Taurosaur in the flank, which has lost a couple of wounds now, so I think it's on 3 or 4. But instantly, the other Warlord is there, and this is the one without the 4-up fortitude, unfortunately, but he's only got 3 wounds left. And then there's the fleeing skinks. Either we stick here and nothing really happens in turn 6, maybe I lose the Huntsman. But the alternative is I bounce through the Taurosaur, I have a go at his Warlord, and there's potential to go all the way through. So I take it. In Magic, I get a 10-7, and I managed to cast Stone Skin on the Lord. He'd stop token thrown, but still that means that my dragon is now res 8. And the only other bit here is that my Tree Father Ancient has moved back to block you see that bottom right here, you can see he's moved back to block the Warlord from coming in, because I think if a Warlord and a Taurosaur come in for a flank charge there, that creates that combat to be quite different. And I don't think he's going to want to charge in there. It's just too risky for him. And other than that, I tried to cast Summer Growth, I did cast Summer Growth on the Wild Huntsman. I get 2 models back. This proved quite critical later. In combat, you see this. So firstly, the Taurosaur dies out without doing anything, and I get into his Warlord. He kills 2 of mine, as will be seen on a different picture, and I do a couple of wounds to him. But critically, this is what happens. I lost 2 Wild Huntsmen. He fails his cold-blooded leadership check on about -1, so potential, but really shouldn't. He runs. I fail to catch him, but I do run into the skinks and kill them. So that's pretty much tied up that flank. I've got half points for the Warlord as a minimum, and yeah, which is pretty good. And I've killed some skinks in the center. The Saurian Ancient's turn 6. Saurian Ancient's turn 6. That actually combat happened with the Warlord in his turn 6. The only magic he did was the only thing he could do was cascading fire into the combat with the Huntsman, which I looked to stop. He chose not to charge his Taurosaur in because the dragon was res 8. The only thing that's willing to do is potentially kill his Taurosaur if I run after it. He's just using points, and the skinks are probably not going to suffer that much if they stay there. The skinks did manage to get killed by the end, but that's about it. But otherwise, it just ends with a very, very quick final turn. So, battle reports. Those are the models that's killed, and those are the points that we both got. It's quite an even game in terms of points, but it's effectively the key part about this difference to this is the objective themselves. I've managed to get the secondary objective, and that gives me a 13-7 win. So the plan worked of sneaking through a Dryad unit and then just taking off just pushing him back into the corner and denying the other 2 to him. So I'm really happy with that. Overall, I think it was quite good for myself. I was quite worried about the 2 Warlords, but I've managed to mitigate one by fluke, even though I let him into my lines early on. Using the Tree Father to try and nullify it eventually is very effective. I think it's such a good character. A lot of points, but in Druidism, you can throw that thing into most things, and it probably will come out and survive, or at least hold up for something else to come in. The Wild Huntsman, for some reason, survived this battle. Never seen that before. So correction, they shouldn't be on there as the dead pile. The 7 Wild Huntsman definitely survived, and did quite well going through a Taurosaur, half points for a Lord, and a skink unit. So that is them. This is something I'm trying to add on at the moment here. Hobby corner. This is just to try and push myself. So my next project is a winter themed army, and this is the first unit that I now complete. So these are going to be 10 Sylvan Sentinels or archers, but probably Sylvan Sentinels with the current list. And I'm just going to keep plinking away at this with every battle port, something new. Though for the next stage, I'm going to be updating ahead of TEC. So what next? I've had a few more battle reports, another one against Tommy as well, but over at his house, so an away game. And I've had another one down at Frome Gaming Club. This is something that's recently set up by Jack Austin. They meet every Wednesdays at about 7 o'clock. Recommend coming down. It's really friendly and an easy place to get to. Park, where I had a game this Wednesday again, which is going to come up. Plan is to sort of build up to TEC. Eventually, I'll do a review of all Sylvan Elves lists that are going. Won't necessarily be a good one, and I'll try not to deliver as many spoiler alerts for anyone's secret plans for the list. Let them do that before the games, and then we'll go straight into TEC. So, thank you very much, Tommy, for the game. Look forward to all seeing you at TEC.